Thanks for tuning in to Yappin N Shxt, where we as brothers and friends hop on the mics and have conversations. Sometimes they're serious, sometimes they're not. Sometimes we react, and sometimes we just yap. We appreciate you tuning in and hope you enjoy the episode.
All right. Well, happy election day.
Yeah. I mean, if you
And
can call it that, who knows? I'm just kidding.
yeah, who knows? Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
Ha-
Just a lot of people,
Yeah. I mean, it's a tense time, and because I mean, regardless of who wins, it's like in everybody's minds, just talking generally, um it affects a lot of people.
Oh yeah,
Um,
it'll be an interesting day tomorrow, I
yeah,
think, regardless of the outcome. Because you're either
yeah,
gonna have people sad and just I don't want to say depressed, but like they're either gonna be that way or they're gonna be angry or a
yeah,
little bit of both, or there's gonna be the
yeah,
joyous side, whichever side wins, there's gonna have the joy on that side. But
right,
there's gonna be anger and frustration and all that stuff on the other side too, regardless
right,
of who wins at this point.
right. Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things, right? It's like um sports, you know, good feeling stories, feel good events brings people together of any political, religious background, right? But when it comes to politics, I mean, it's very divided, and unfortunately, you would think it should be a much more joyous event that brings people together. People enjoy democracy, going out to vote, but sometimes it's like you're voting. Um, you don't want to share who you're voting for with your friends, family, colleagues, because it's a stigmatized, right? And then you got like, I just was watching, like, we have the news on. This is the most news we have on, you
Yeah,
know,
it's pretty much the
uh,
only time we put
all
the news
year.
on. Yeah.
Yeah, and so we have the news like constantly going on right now. Whether it's local news, we've been bouncing back between local news or live polling news like on YouTube. Um, and we have YouTube Premium, so there's no ads, so we could watch many different channels on there. And so it's like we're seeing the news lately that like there was bomb threats and stuff that was happening at certain like location polling locations, and it's just like, yeah. See, so everyone's just on edge, right? Even
Yeah.
like, even my wife was like, "Are you sure you want to go in office these next couple of days?" Because it's just tension in the air. I'm just like, well, fortunately, my building's pretty secure. I mean, knock on wood, but
Yeah. Well, it was one of those things, like we watched something last night to where I mean, we had the news on and it was just like, and it showed, people, the volunteers at polling stations and all that going through trainings and just like having to act out like the most absurd scenarios,
mhm.
but that's the country we live in. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? It's
yeah,
just like you hate to be like, that's ridiculous. But then I'm like, no, that just shows you what kind of state a lot of these, a lot of this country is in, is like they have
yeah,
to prepare for that. I'm like, that's insane. Because like some of these
yeah,
things, I'm like, dude, that's ridiculous. But people are like that. You know what I mean? Like people lose a game and they flip a table. You know what I mean?
yeah,
So like, it's like, I mean, best way to put it, like, you got rage issues, whatever it might be,
yeah,
and some of them looked ridiculous where they, people would be like, and these were all actors, mind you, for training. And they were just like,
yeah,
ah,
yeah,
ah, rah, 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 rah. And then they would just like pretend to like pass out and faint and like fall on the table just to
yeah.
draw a scene. And I'm like, oh my God, the fact that we all have to have people
Seriously,
trained
man.
on this, that's insane.
Yeah. Well, we'll see how it turns out. Again, we
Yeah,
don't
no,
talk much, but
it'll
yeah,
be interesting to see I
yeah,
mean, how it all turns out. This is kind of like, I don't want to say like doomsday, but that's how it feels
yeah,
sometimes when you're watching an election and it's just like
yeah,
tick tick, and because especially being on the West Coast,
yeah.
it's like
I, I
most of the states on the West Coast aren't going to come in until closer to late
midnight,
evening,
pretty much.
midnight, and you're
Yeah,
just like, oh shit.
yeah. No, I know. Like, yeah, we were just talking about getting like a refresher on like the like the government process and the government system, right? So like I
Yeah.
just I was just doing some research before we jumped on this call. Me and Vanessa were just talking about like all right, you know, what are all the branches of the government, right? So quick refresher. I just actually quickly relearned this, by the way. So, you know, you got your executive branch, judicial, and legislative. Pretty much executive is the president and his crew, or her crew, their crew. And then you got the legislative branch, which is just made up of all the states, representatives, senators, right? They're the
Hmm.
ones who you see, you know, bicker back and forth, right? You know, throwing fists during an office meeting, right? Those are the all the memes about. And then
Yeah.
you got the judicial, which is like the Supreme Court lawyers, judges. So those are their whole own separate thing.
Hmm.
Yeah. And then we were just like getting refreshers on like, you know, what does electoral mean, all that stuff, you know, and you know, Vanessa had a good question, like talking about like, does our vote even matter? You know, I think bottom line, our vote does matter. It's yes, yes, U.S. is an electoral system, you know, that people kind of can argue back and forth, right? Pros and cons all day.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, to win the electoral, you're still winning the popular vote, you know, per state, right?
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, so uh, whether no matter what side you're on, either way, by the end of this week, hopefully by the end of the week or earlier, we'll know who the new president is, and you know, here's my non-biased take. Either way, you know, not to mention names. It's like not to mention names. Like obviously, the
There's
world
there's
knows who the
there's
candidates
two
are.
names. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, Whoever wins, I would say, you know, there is a future president, not president, precedent, you
Yeah.
know, for whoever wins in the future of the US, right? I don't like, and this is just me being real. I don't know who will win, will actually change things for the better for the US yet. I'm not saying things are going to get worse for one or the other. I'm just saying, um, you know, both sides have good policies. It's just like, depending on who wins, there will be a wave. Actually, no, not depending on who wins. Either person who wins, there's going to be waves, right? That affects not just us, but the whole world. Um, so it'll be interesting to see, man. It'll be very interesting to see.
Yeah. Yeah. And obviously we don't really share too much on politics
Yeah,
on this podcast too. It's just I think we're just in a weird spot. You know what I mean?
yeah,
It's just,
yeah,
yeah. Traditionally, it's kind of funny because, like in Washington, at least on the western side of the state, you know, traditionally it's a blue. It's
yeah,
blue. You know, most people vote blue.
yeah,
Not even necessarily because of, you know, platforms or anything like that, but it's just like, no, we're just a blue. I'm like, okay, are you sure? Because,
yeah,
like, you know,
yeah,
like if you look at both platforms and what people are running for, it's like, there's some policies on the Republican side that I'm like,
yeah,
yeah, that makes sense. And then there's
yeah,
some on the Democratic side. And I'm like, that makes sense.
yeah,
So, I mean, but people don't necessarily do that. They're just like, I'm either blue or I'm red. And they're very extreme
yeah, yeah,
in
yeah,
that regard. And it's kind of funny
yeah,
because, like, you know, coming from Western Washington, you come down to California, and, you know, there's pockets, obviously, there's pockets up in Washington too, but like, there's definitely areas down here where it's just like full on red. And I'm like,
yeah. I bet.
all right, you know,
I
I
bet.
mean, you know, we can talk about, you know, you bring in JD, for instance, you know, he's lived in Arizona, which is
Yeah, yeah,
usually
yeah. Battleground.
predominantly red, even though it is a battleground state.
Yeah,
Same with like Georgia too. You know, it's like depending on what pocket you live in.
right.
But
Yeah, I mean,
it's
yeah.
yeah,
I mean,
it
clearly,
may
like Washington, right? Like you have some parts of the east of Washington that is just red dominant, you know?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, that's the
Yeah.
thing. You look at any place, it's usually major cities are where like blue usually sits, and then
Hmm.
everything else is red.
Yeah.
So just depends on what your profession is, where you're at,
Yeah.
what you believe in, obviously. But no, it's definitely one of those things. So it's like, being on a college campus, it is very tumultuous to say the least, of like
Oh yeah.
students going back and forth and
Yeah.
debating and politics and all that stuff, like a debate club, all that. But like,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, there was a someone put a poll out just on this campus that I'm at, and it's like I think 71% said they were voting red, and I'm like,
Oh
wow, that
geez.
is
That's
insane.
interesting.
That's an
Yeah.
interesting take
Interesting stat. Yeah.
from this area of all things. But then when you break it down, you kind of think about the people that are at this school and
Yeah.
their
Yeah.
background, and I'm like, that kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
Um, and then you obviously feel for the people that are like obviously in minority groups that are like, no, we can't. I'm like,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's fair. So it's just it's a weird
Well,
spot to be in, just
yeah.
seeing all this kind of happen around you, and yeah.
Yeah. Well, we'll see how it shapes up. And there's yeah, and there's like reports of like, you know, if one president doesn't win or not, will they concede immediately, or will they draw
Yeah.
out the fight,
Well,
and so we'll see.
yeah, we'll definitely see. I know, and even when we did our walk and everything, we talked about this, just as, just a general, like, when did we start just also like, I will die on a sword for this candidate kind of thing? We were talking about this in terms of like, when we were growing up, it was like, sure, people were into politics. They still didn't talk about who they voted for, all of that.
Yeah.
And a lot of the people saw politicians as very sleazy. I'm like, oh God, fucking politicians. No, fuck
Yeah.
them.
Yeah.
It's like, sure, whatever. They oversee the state and then the federal and da da da.
Yeah.
But people were like, oh God, just a man in a suit. But
Yeah.
now it's like, posterizing these
It
candidates. And it was like, and to the point, like, I think the first year that we really noticed it more was when Obama was running, right? And that's kind of when you saw
yeah.
like a fandom kind of, start coming. But now it's
Right,
like you
right.
look at it and there's just like, you know, at this point, it's like someone called, Trump's trash. And now people are just like sheep in sense of like they're showing up to rallies in trash bags saying like, yeah,
Yeah,
we're
yeah.
trash. And I'm like, really? That's where we're at right now. You
Yeah,
could say the same
it's
about the other side too, like very,
yeah.
but again, these are the extremists, but at the same time, I'm like, man, you guys are really posterizing these candidates like they're your goddamn hero
You're right, like,
on both
yeah.
sides. What I'm saying, like, just keeping it fair, like
Yeah,
we're
yeah.
heroes to people. And I'm like, I mean, I guess if this is where you're at, if this is your Kobe, then I guess, but I don't
It's
know.
yeah,
Anyways,
yeah.
it's interesting to see for sure. I'm just like,
Yeah.
damn, all right. I mean, I guess, we
That
idolize our sports, sports people,
yeah,
Kobe,
yeah. Yeah.
Shohei Otani, all these people. Um,
Yeah.
but then I mean, I'm like, I guess this is your Kobe. That's
Yeah.
sure, I guess. But I was just like, man, that's a interesting take.
Everybody has their heroes.
Oh no, for sure.
Yeah.
Whether it's the TV actor or whatever, and
Yeah.
whatever it is, it's just, yeah, it's just kind of funny. Like when it comes to politics, growing up, no one ever talked about it. I
No
mean,
one.
sure, they talked about it, but they didn't like tell you who they were voting for, what party
No,
they
yeah.
stood with. I think back then, I think it was, at least when I was growing up, from my observation, like people obviously just, there was extremists, but I feel like they listened to the platform and the policies that
Yeah.
each
Yeah.
candidate had. Now I feel like it doesn't even necessarily matter, you know, what people's policies and platform they're running on. They're just voting for a person rather than what they're doing.
Right.
At least when you go to anybody and ask, some people actually know and have knowledge on why they're voting for who they are, but
Right.
so much of it now, it's like you just kind of see like, oh, I'm voting for this person because this. I'm like,
Yeah.
it's not really, that doesn't affect you though.
Yeah. Exactly.
Interesting. That's more of a state level representative. Why we so, that's not going to affect you though.
Yeah.
Anyways,
But
that's why we always say
yeah.
local elections probably more important to pay
Yeah. Oh
attention
yeah.
to.
100%.
Just saying, just saying. Anyways,
Uh,
we
yeah.
digress. It is election
Yeah.
night, so that's kind of where our minds are at.
Yeah. But speaking of local news, yeah, we'll move on to the next topic. Um, I actually had this 2 weeks ago and then I erased it, because I thought things were looking different. Um Seahawks, time to panic
I think we're
because
definitely. I know we brought this up, and I
yeah,
thought about it when we talked about it.
yeah. I
Um,
because 2 weeks ago when we lost to or a couple weeks ago when we lost to the Giants, I was like, is it time to panic? And then we had that big win against who did we play last week?
the Falcons.
Falcons. We had that good win against the Falcons. And I was like, okay, never mind. Take it off the board. We're looking good. Um, and then what, last week we played the Bills and
Yeah,
or
and I'll
just
be
this
honest.
past
I
weekend.
I expected us to get beat by the Bills. Like,
Yeah, but however, the way that we played against the Falcons, I expected a close game. The Bills are
yeah,
great
I
this year.
expected a closer game as well, but
Yeah, but I didn't expect. Oh no, 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 not the Bills. We played decent against the Bills.
we played
I'm
decent
talking about the
until the
Rams.
second half,
Yeah, I'm
and
talking about the
then
Rams.
yeah. Well, and here's my
Yeah,
thing, right? And here's why I would agree and say that I think it is time to panic a little bit,
yeah.
but I also think being a first year head coach is also difficult trying to
Oh,
get your
100%.
plays in, whatever that
Yeah,
is.
yeah.
I think there is some coaching components to folks not being ready.
Hmm.
There's that, obviously, rookie head coach, first head coaching job. I get that. But for whatever reason, when I talked about this to a couple people at work last week, they're like, who do you got this week? And I'm like, the Rams. And mind you, I am surrounded by 49ers fans, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Granted, they had a bye week, so they didn't care. But I have a colleague. He's a big Cardinals fan, and he's just used to sucking every year.
yeah, yeah.
And I was like the Rams, and he was like, "Ooh, that should be an easy one." I'm like, "No,
The Rams
I
are
will
hot
tell
right
you
now.
right now, it does not matter if the Seahawks are 14-0, and then our last two games are against the Rams. We are probably losing both of them.
Yeah,
We
yeah, that's
could be
true.
a Super Bowl dynasty team, and the Rams could be winless, and they would still beat us because." For whatever reason, we cannot figure out the Rams.
No,
Sean McVay, it doesn't even, it precedes Sean McVay. You go to
yeah.
Jeff Fisher, you go
I
to
remember
anybody
the,
else.
the worst was Jeff Fisher. Fucking he he was known to just fucking throw those trick plays on us every
Yeah,
single time just to fuck
every
around.
single time just
Yeah.
to fuck with
Jeff
us.
Fisher was the worst. He was petty.
Yeah, he was. He was. So
Yeah.
it is, it's one of those things where I was like, the Rams, we will find some way to lose this game. And I'm going into this with a mindset of like, I hope we win. We should win, but I will not be surprised if we lose.
Yeah. I
And
agree with it.
I
Yeah.
will say I was frustrated, but I
Yeah.
was not surprised at the outcome of that game.
I I I agree with you on the sense on a couple things. I'm not like the bandwagoners who are already, if you go through any Reddit Seahawks
Oh yeah,
subs,
yeah.
the ones who don't know football are already like fire McDonald, all this stuff. Pete Carroll never had a
Pete
bad season.
Carroll.
It's like, yeah, I mean, did you have a blind, like Pete Carroll had his first couple years were horrible. It took
Yeah,
him several years before. Remember,
yeah.
we got Pete Carroll, 2007, 2008?
Uh, yeah,
Yeah, like somewhere around there, or maybe
yeah,
2010. I don't know.
yeah. It was
2009,
closer to that
2010.
because we went 7-9 and we made the playoffs.
Yeah, but that was when he got Marshawn Lynch.
Yes,
Marshawn Lynch, 2010ish
I
then,
think it was
because
the 10. Yeah,
yeah. But either way, he did have multiple bad years, including recently before he left. He
yeah,
had two bad years. So to
yeah.
say that, you know, Mike McDonald's the only coach in history. You forgot Jim Mora. You forgot even Holmgren had some bad years.
Yeah,
But
and mind you, these are legendary coaches too. Mike
yeah,
Holmgren and
yeah,
Pete Carroll, both
yeah,
legendary in their own way. Pete Carroll coming back from college didn't have a great NFL tenure. Didn't do great in the NFL, but did great at USC.
yeah.
Um, but
I
even
will
then,
say,
like these guys
yeah,
had a ton of coaching experience when they came in. And you're looking at Mike McDonald, who has
yeah,
decent defensive coordinator and
yeah,
defensive assistant, coaching experience, but he hasn't been a head coach. You know what I mean?
yeah. I think Mike McDonald still has a lot of potential still. So I'm
I
not too
think
worried
so.
about that. Um, I will say though, there was a cool stat that I read recently from a couple people who's non-bandwagoners who know football, and we're just like, hey, don't forget this is a rookie coach. Also, don't forget he has a system in mind that has a lot of potential, but he needs his players. And don't forget, and here's another third point, don't forget. He still has roughly over 90% of Pete Carroll era players still on his team.
Yeah.
You know, so don't shoot the coach yet until at least a couple more years. Um, like for example, if he got his players right, the players that he wants to run his system,
Hmm.
and 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 we're still shit, then it's like okay, boo this man. But based on his philosophy, based on like what he brings, I'm still optimistic. Once he gets his players in, which hopefully sooner than later. But the way football is, it's a slow game. You know, it could be a couple more years.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm not necessarily,
Yeah,
like I said, I'm not, I mean, to be fair, last year and even this year were supposed to be rebuilding years.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. I will say though, the Rams, I agree with you. I'm the same way. I agree with you. I think we always find a way to lose to the Rams. However, the way we lost to this Rams team on Sunday was not typical of how we found a way to lose. It was so many bad mistakes. I mean, come on.
that's Seahawk football though. We shoot ourselves in the foot, you know what I
Yeah,
mean? But
but this was
but
this was
throwing
worse.
two interceptions from the like
Yeah,
in the within the
the
five
red
yard
zone.
line,
Yeah, in the
like
red
what do we
zone.
do? Not even the red zone, but like we were in the five, like within
Oh,
five
we are that closer.
yards.
Yeah,
First
I
and
mean,
goal
yeah,
both
it was first and
times.
goal both ways, and you have one of the best running backs in the game. At least give him the chance to get to third and short. You
Yeah.
know, but oh, even the first intercept, or not the first interception, second interception at that goal line. Kenneth Walker was wide open on the flat,
Yes, I was
and I saw
yelling
that
at my
too.
TV and I
Yeah,
was
I
like,
saw that.
"Walker is
Yeah,
open." And then, bro, I don't know, like he literally threw to a spot where there was I know where he was trying to go.
yeah,
He was trying to go to JSN in the back, but even at that point he was double covered because they had the high
yeah,
safety on the outside. But his arm also got ticked and it went to just a dead zone where the linebacker were not even a linebacker, it was a cornerback, but was just sitting there waiting for that ball.
yeah.
And I was
It
like,
was
oh
horrible.
my God.
It was
And the
horrible.
fact that it was a
Yeah.
103-yard return too. So I was like, dude,
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Even yeah.
that made the whole situation even
I
worse. So
yeah, icing on the cake. Um,
because yeah, I mean, not only did we turn it over in the red zone or in the end zone, he ran it back.
yeah.
I was like, dude, what are we doing here?
Um, I will say though, uh, it. I always knew I liked DK Metcalf and what he meant to the team, but just from bad quarterback play recently, in the past couple years with him,
Mm-hmm.
on our team, and because he can be an AJ Brown, he can be like, I mean, literally AJ Brown was his roommate, college mate. Like they were both like killers in Ole Miss.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and the only reason why he fell so far to us, um, was because of his injury history,
Yeah.
right? But but he can be an AJ Brown. They both just as gifted. I say AJ Brown's a little more finesse, but both of them are just physically talented.
Yeah.
And DK just doesn't have that quarterback system play because we're always a run first type of deal. Even now, even with Grubbs being the OC, it's always run or he's trying to force more creative passing plays, but we're always a run first team. And um, but DK was always like, fan favorite, right? But kind of like Tyler Lockett. Yeah, he can come in the clutch, but it's like he's expendable. But the last two games without DK, the point what I'm trying to say is really highlighting the impact that he
Yeah.
has to the
No,
team.
it's literally just
Yeah,
the impact of like what
yeah,
he means being out there.
yeah,
Granted, even this last match, JSN had 180 yards,
yeah,
two tutties, 12 catches. Like it was,
yeah.
he went off, but it was just like
But it felt forced though,
it did. It felt forced.
it felt like like every snap felt like I mean, yeah, they were kind of playing from behind because they're playing horrible, but what I meant was like every snap felt like garbage time, because it was like they were trying to cover up their mistakes with like garbage time throws. Where if DK was on the field, everything would have been a little smoother. He would have got doubled, it would have opened things up more for everybody else.
Yeah, I think honestly, this in hot take. Some people might agree with me at this point, but I think it's time John Snyder either figures something out or like we need to look at a new GM.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like John Snyder was great with Pete Carroll. I think this is his chance to shine without Pete Carroll kind of there at that point
yeah,
because I know that was a big thing.
yeah,
But when he came out and said that like he believes that offensive linemen are just overdrafted and overpaid,
yeah,
I was like, bro, how can you say that when we've had literally the worst line like the entire tenure of Pete Carroll's career, right? And like that's what Russ was always complaining about. We always were like, oh yeah, the line is bad, but come on, Russ is just complaining. And it's
I
like,
mean, look at Russ
bro,
and the Steelers right now.
look, yeah, I'm
Yeah,
saying like,
yeah,
and then he went to the Broncos, and had a shit year because I mean, let's be honest, the Broncos line was worse than ours.
yeah,
Imagine, crazy. Um, but it is crazy though, because it's like, the last 2 weeks, against these the two teams we've played, the Bills and the Rams, our center has had three like snaps that have gone like over Gino's head.
yeah,
I'm like, dude, what are we doing?
yeah, yeah. That is, yeah,
And
an
don't get me wrong,
excuse.
there's a lot of injury on our line, like Abe Lucas being out, and crazy to say George Fant is out because he was a basketball player that became a football player.
Yeah,
But it's kind of crazy to think about it, and when you're just like, oh man, all of our linemen are just they're so young and they're so inexperienced, or even the old guys we bring in are old. So it's like, all right, they just can't keep up with the young defensive ends and all that stuff.
yeah,
So it's kind of just like, damn. But to the point,
yeah,
it's like, as much as we want to blame Gino and he did throw and he does make forced passes and stuff, but man, this man is getting pressured. What did we have? 8 sacks? Didn't get
yeah,
sacked 8 times or some shit. I
something
mean,
like
like
that.
they're not giving this guy any time, and Kenneth Walker is not getting any room. There's no
Yeah,
push. So I'm just like, bro, like we're
yeah,
we're doing well and all that stuff. Our defense is like kind of all over the place right now. We're shooting ourselves in
yeah,
the foot with penalties, which, you know,
yeah,
yeah, I don't know, man. It's just like I said, I don't think we're panicking at this point. I think it's just more frustration.
yeah,
Um and not even, the coaching side, sure, but like, man, some of these things, I don't know.
yeah.
Just like getting beat on a cover zero. I don't I don't really
Oh,
understand that either, but whatever. I don't play anymore.
yeah,
I just comment from the side and
yeah,
criticize. I'm not in the NFL. Don't come after me, but
yeah. Well, at least moving on to our next point. Quick little fun fact that came out a couple weeks ago. I kind of carried this over, but here's something the Seahawks can be proud of. They are currently sixth place in the NFL. You probably heard this of the second place team in the entire NFL that consumes the second most Uncrustables
Yeah.
per season. Apparently, the Broncos last year consume over 80,000 Uncrustables per season. 80,000.
This is a stat that I didn't know we needed until it came
Yeah.
out. And I was like, oh,
Honestly, it made me crave some Uncrustables. I haven't got any yet, but
yeah.
or
Well,
maybe
because
make your own peanut butter and jelly.
yeah, it was just one of
Um,
those things where I like looked over. I'm like, see, I'm not out of pocket to say that I want Uncrustables. Like it is a
yeah,
thing.
yeah. But yeah, so I thought that was a cool fun fact. That's just to break it down from the article. That's like eating 700 sandwiches per week. Um, you know, um, in retrospect, the New Orleans Saints eat the least amount at about 50 per week. Um, so yeah. Um, well, and one talks on Seahawks right there, until we get a better idea next week. But on to better and good news.
Well, hey, they can't hurt us this week.
Oh yeah, true.
They're on a
Yeah,
bye.
you're right.
They
You're right.
can't
Yeah,
hurt
yeah.
us.
Well, I mean, some freak accident, injury pops up for somebody. Um, but anyways, you're right. Seahawks on a bye week, so nothing can harm them for now.
They can't
But
hurt our feelings this week.
yeah. But on to good news. Shout out to your countryman, Shohei Ohtani.
Oh
Got
yeah,
his what do they call it? Ring?
yeah. Ring
Is
World
it still a
Series.
ring? Okay. They don't call it anything else. But anyways,
Yeah,
he
got
got
his
his
ring.
championship. Hey man, that game was crazy. That game
Yeah.
5 game. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I was kind of like just watching, Yankees about to force what a game 3, game 4. They were
Game
aiming to force, or game 5, I think.
game 6.
Was it? Yeah,
It was
game
game
6, because
5.
it was
Yeah,
because the last 2 games are gonna go back to LA. Yeah,
yeah,
but dude, they were like what up 5-0, and in the 5th inning comes, and just mistake after mistake after mistake after mistake,
yeah,
and the Dodgers just came back. And honestly, man, and then by that time they evened things up until the very end.
yeah.
And I thought Yankees might have a chance to still pull it out, because just a conspiracy theorist in me when it comes to sports. I thought, the LA market wants to celebrate their win in LA, right? So they're like, you know what? Let's have the Yankees win this one. But nope, they're like, fuck it, close it out right now. And it was incredible. What a comeback. That was, me, I'm not a baseball fan, but that game for any non-baseball fan, and probably even baseball fans, was amazing to watch. It was fun to watch.
Yeah. No, I agree.
Yeah.
It was great. And honestly, being a lifelong hater of the Yankees,
Yeah.
um, it was such a joy watching them just implode on
Yeah.
themselves on in the 5th inning.
Yeah. It was fun to watch. Yeah, I enjoyed it. But that's the beauty of sports, right? Like, we were talking about elections earlier. Isn't that how it's supposed to be, right? Getting a lot of non-fans to participate by enjoying or whatever, and then becoming further lifelong fans of the
Mhm.
thing, right? Yeah, you can argue, oh, but it's two different things, sports and elections. I mean, the heart of it can be still brought in to everything else.
Yeah.
But yeah, so yeah, Otani, where does that cement him as one as is he up there as now one of the greatest baseball players ever, or is it still too young?
I mean, he's
Like if he was to retire like right now, would it cement him as one of the best players ever, or in baseball does time in the league matter as well?
I think time in the league does matter.
Yeah,
But I think he's done a lot so far. But I do think time in the league,
yeah,
but he has there's no one else like him in today's
yeah.
game.
I mean,
So
yeah,
like pitching, hitting, all the
yeah,
things. I'm just like,
yeah. I'm a fan. I'm definitely a fan.
yeah, yeah.
Um, Well, last point of the night related to the same thing. Here's another cool fun fact that I just learned recently. Um, for 5 straight seasons in the MLB, someone and all different people named Will Smith on the team won on the winning team.
Yeah.
I think there was one Will Smith who was on 2 different teams that won it, but the other 4 are like totally unrelated, different Will Smiths that were on different World Series winning teams for 5 years in a row. So the joke was is like, if you want a winning team in the World Series, hint hint Mariners,
Yeah.
sign some random guy named Will Smith
Seriously.
to keep that streak going. But yeah, I thought that was a cool fun fact. Did you hear about that?
I did. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I thought it was funny because Will Smith, the pitcher, had won the last 3 World Series. So
Okay,
we
so it's the
joked. So we
same.
joked. We're
Yeah.
like, oh, whatever team he signs with is going to win a World Series.
Yeah, and he did.
And the pitcher, he signed with the Royals, and the Royals got knocked out by the Yankees
Oh.
to get to,
Oh, okay, okay.
this
I didn't
round.
follow
And I
that.
was like,
Yeah.
damn, they broke the streak. And then they were like, no, just a player named Will Smith, because Will Smith, the catcher,
Yeah.
won before the other Will Smith won 3 in a row on 3 different teams.
Also, there's only 2 Will Smiths then.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, okay.
So there's Will Smith on the
I thought there was
Dodgers.
more
They
than
won
one.
in 2020. And then Will Smith, the pitcher, was on the last 3 teams that won the World Series.
Oh, geez.
And
That's
it
crazy.
was a different team every
Yeah,
year
yeah.
that he was on. So it was
That's
like, what the
interesting.
heck? What is this? What is this voodoo?
Yeah, that's funny.
So I was like, oh my God. I was like, if the Royals make it to the World Series, I was like,
Yeah.
I am gonna be like, what is this script? Like, what is this?
Yeah. All right, man. Well, that's all I got for tonight. So we can kind of go on and enjoy the rest of our night or pay attention to more news. Any
Yeah.
final thoughts before we wrap it up and call it a good night?
I mean, if you follow baseball, I guess one other thing is, congrats to the big dumper, Cal Raleigh, and Demo Dylan Moore for getting gold gloves as part of the end of the year award ceremony type of things. So that's cool. And, Cal is also up for Silver Slugger for a catcher for whatever that, means to folks, for you
Yeah.
Seattle folks, or for people that just like Cal Raleigh because he's got a big behind.
Yeah.
He's got a gold glove and he's up for a Silver Slugger. So there's only been, I think, 3 other Mariners, potentially 4, that have ever won both awards in
Yeah.
the same year. So we'll see. He had a hell of a year. Unfortunately, we still need to sign him.
Yeah.
Extend the man. Anyways, that's all I really got.
All right, man. Thank you. That was a fun night.
Yeah.
As we always like to end with our favorite saying, keep talking to each other, keep thinking together, keep growing together. We'll see y'all next time.